The hotel room Michael Jackson rented for 11 years and never slept in. There was a room on the 14th floor of a Los Angeles hotel that nobody was allowed to enter. Not the cleaning staff, not the manager, not even Michael Jackson's closest associates. The room was paid for every single month, for 11 years. In cash through a lawyer nobody could trace. And Michael Jackson never once slept in it. The question isn't why he rented it. The question is what was inside. August 1988. Los Angeles. Michael Jackson was at the peak of everything bad tour, sold-out stadiums. His face on every magazine cover on the planet. He was 29 years old and the most famous human being alive. That summer, he checked into the Biltmore Hotel under a false name, standard procedure. He did it everywhere. But this time was different. He booked one room for himself. Standard suite, top floor. And then he booked a second room, one floor below, room 1408. He paid 3 months in advance. Cash through his attorney. Then he left. He never checked into room 1408. Not that night, not that week. But the payments kept coming every single month, for 11 years. The hotel manager at the time, a man named Gerald Ross, noticed after about 6 months, he pulled the records, confirmed the payments, confirmed the name on the account, a shell company, legally registered, completely untraceable. Ross knocked on the door one afternoon. No answer. He used his master key. The room was empty. Perfectly made bed. Untouched. The kind of untouched that means nobody has been there in months. But here is the thing. On the desk, there was a single envelope. Ross didn't open it. He was a professional. He locked the door and walked away. He told no one. The payments kept coming. The room sat empty. But 3 times a year, always in March, always in July, always in November, a courier arrived at the hotel, checked in at the front desk, took the elevator to the 14th floor, slid something under the door of room 1408, and left. No name. No return address. No explanation. Of course they did. Hotels notice everything, but the instructions from the account were clear in writing. Notarized. Do not enter the room. Do not disturb the contents. Do not inquire about the account holder. And so they didn't. The world was watching Michael Jackson for very different reasons that year. Allegations, headlines, the kind of noise that swallows a person whole. Through all of it, the payments for room 1408 continued. Not once did they stop. Not once were they late. Whatever that room meant to Michael Jackson, it meant something that couldn't be interrupted. Not by scandal, not by chaos, not by the entire world turning against him. There is something important to understand about that year. 1993 was the year Michael Jackson's public life began to collapse. The allegations dominated every news cycle. His name became shorthand for something dark and contested. Sponsors withdrew, radio stations hesitated. People who had called themselves his friends stopped returning calls. He was 35 years old and the most scrutinized human being on the planet. And yet the courier still came in March, slid something under the door of room 1408. Left without a word. The courier still came in July. Same floor, same door, same silence. The courier still came in November. Whoever was receiving those deliveries, the children, the families, the people whose names were written in that notebook, none of them knew what was happening in the headlines. None of them knew about the allegations. None of them knew that the man funding their lives was simultaneously fighting for his own. They only knew that the money kept arriving, that the bills kept getting paid, that the promise, whatever form it had taken, was still being kept. That is not a small thing. Most people, under that kind of pressure, would have stopped, would have pulled back, would have told themselves that survival came first, that generosity was a luxury they could no longer afford. Michael Jackson did not stop. Not in 1993. Not in 1994. Not through the settlement, the media frenzy, the years of exile and return and exile again. Gerald Ross, the hotel manager who had first discovered the room, gave a single interview years later. He was retired by then. Living quietly outside the city, he said he had thought about room 1408 almost every day for 2 decades. He said the thing that stayed with him was not the mystery of it, not the money or the drawings or the notebook. It was the consistency, 11 years through everything. The payments never wavered. Ross said that in his experience people revealed themselves not in their grand gestures, but in their habits. Anyone could make a dramatic donation. Anyone could write a large check in a moment of feeling generous. But to build a system, to maintain it quietly across more than a decade, through fame and recovery and collapse again, without ever once making it about yourself, that, Ross said, was character. That was who Michael Jackson actually was. Not the headlines. Not the spectacle. Not the image that had been constructed and dismantled and reconstructed so many times that most people had forgotten there was a real person underneath it. Just a man, paying a hotel bill every month, making sure a room full of children's drawings stayed safe. A new hotel manager, a woman named Diane Chu, she inherited the records, inherited the instructions, and inherited the mystery. Chu was not the kind of person who left things unexplained. She spent 3 weeks trying to trace the shell company. Hit walls everywhere. The lawyers wouldn't talk. The account was legitimate. The payments were current. There was nothing she could do. Except wait. The 25th of June, 2009, Michael Jackson died. Diane Chu heard the news like everyone else, radio breaking alerts. The world going quiet in a very loud way. She sat at her desk for a long time. Then she pulled the file for room 1408. The payments had stopped automatically, as if whoever set up the account had programmed it to end on a specific date or specific event. The account was closed the same day Michael Jackson died. Chu called the lawyers. They confirmed. The account was set to terminate upon the death of the unnamed account holder. She had her answer. She had always known. Really. She took the elevator to the 14th floor. She opened the door to room 1408. What she found changed everything. She thought she knew about Michael Jackson. The room was not empty. It was full. Not of furniture, not of clothes, not of anything you would expect. The walls were covered, floor to ceiling, in children's drawings, hundreds of them, maybe more, pinned carefully overlapping crayon. Marker, pencil, watercolor houses, suns, stick figures holding hands, stars, animals, trees. Every single drawing had a name on it. A child's name, written in a child's hand, and a date. The dates went back to 1988. Chu stood in the middle of the room and turned slowly. She was standing inside 11 years of children. In the corner of the room, on the desk, was a box. Inside the box were letters. Hundreds of letters. All from children, all addressed to Michael Jackson. Some were fan letters, clumsy, sweet, full of spelling mistakes. But most of them were something else entirely. They were thank you letters. A girl named Sophia, age 8, thanking him for paying for her mother's surgery. A boy named James, age 11, thanking him for the scholarship that sent him to school. A family in Detroit, a family in London, a family in São Paulo. All of them thanking an anonymous donor, none of them knowing it was him. At the bottom of the box was a notebook. Michael Jackson's handwriting, unmistakable. It wasn't a diary, it wasn't a journal, it was a list. Names, ages, situations, amounts every child he had helped. Quietly, without credit, without cameras. The list ran to 43 pages. Diane Chu closed the box. She sat on the edge of the bed that had never been slept in. And she understood. Michael Jackson hadn't rented this room to sleep in it. He had rented it to remember. Every time a courier arrived, March, July, November, they were delivering new drawings, new letters, from children whose lives had been changed by a man they never met. He kept them here, in a room no one could touch, in a place that belonged only to them. He never came to look at them. He didn't need to. He just needed to know they were safe. Chu spent 2 full days in that room. She read every letter. She looked at every drawing. She tried to understand the system, because there was a system. Michael Jackson had not done this carelessly. He had done it with the precision of someone who had thought about it for a very long time. Each drawing was labeled on the back. A number, a date, a city. The numbers corresponded to entries in the notebook. Entry 47, Sophia, 8 years old, Los Angeles, mother's surgery, fully funded. Entry 112, James, 11 years old, Chicago. 3 years of private school, fully funded. Entry 203. A family, no names given, Detroit. House fire. Temporary housing and relocation costs, fully funded. The entries were clinical. Almost cold. No emotion in the handwriting. Just facts. Just numbers. Just the bare record of a life that had been quietly altered. But the drawings on the wall told a different story. Sophia had drawn a woman standing up, healthy, smiling, a sun above her head. James had drawn a building with many windows, a school, probably. Himself standing in front of it, small and proud. The family from Detroit had drawn a house. Red roof, blue door. A garden with flowers that were slightly too large for the fence. These were not drawings of what had happened to them. These were drawings of what they believed was now possible. That was the difference. Michael Jackson had not just paid bills. He had shifted the horizon for these children. He had taken a life that was closing down and pushed it back open. And then he had kept the proof of it in a room on the 14th floor of a hotel in Los Angeles where no one would ever look. Not for himself. Not for credit. Not for the day when someone would find it and understand. Just because those drawings deserved to exist somewhere. Because those children deserved to be remembered somewhere. Even if only in a room that nobody entered. That was the part that broke Diane Chu completely. Not the money, not the scale of it, the fact that he had never planned for anyone to find out. This was not a secret kept badly. This was a secret kept perfectly for 11 years. With discipline and intention and a level of silence that most people are not capable of. He had built an entire architecture of kindness and then walked away from it without looking back. Chu contacted the Michael Jackson estate. She handed over the box, the notebook, everything. The estate went silent for 3 months. Then they released a single statement. It confirmed that Michael Jackson had personally funded the care of an unspecified number of children over a period of more than 2 decades. All anonymous, all through legal trusts, all without any public acknowledgement. The statement did not give numbers. It did not need to. Journalists investigated anyway. What they found was staggering. Conservative estimates put the number at over 400 children. Direct financial assistance. Medical bills, education, housing. Some cases dated back to 1984. When Michael Jackson was 25 years old and just becoming the most famous person on earth, he had started before the fame made it easy. Before he had systems and lawyers and shell companies. He had started when he was still figuring out how to do it quietly. And he never stopped. Not during the tours. Not during the trials. Not during the years when the entire world had already decided who he was. While headlines were being written, payments were being made. While cameras were hunting him, envelopes were being delivered. 2 different worlds running at the same time, one loud, one completely silent. The children in that notebook never knew his name. They knew only that someone had helped them, that someone had seen them when no one else did. That was exactly how he wanted it. One researcher put it simply, Michael Jackson spent his entire adult life trying to make sure no child felt what he had felt as a child, unseen, unprotected. Alone inside a spotlight that never actually kept you warm. He knew what it was to be surrounded by thousands of people and still be completely alone. So he built a room, not for himself. For them, today, room 1408 at the Biltmore no longer exists as a guest room. The hotel converted it. It is now a small reading room, open to the public free of charge. On the wall, there is one framed drawing, crayon, a child's hand, a figure in a black hat, standing under a yellow sun. No caption, no name, just the drawing. And somehow, that is enough. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that the quietest kindness is often the largest. Tell us in the comments, did you know this side of Michael Jackson? Turn on notifications. More stories like this are coming.